Well, hello again, friends. I want to offer you a brief reflection on this occasion on one of the shortest of the Psalms, one which is very precious to me and which I imagine is dear to many of us who are listening in at the moment. But before I read the Psalm, let me tell you a story. And I'm not going to go into all the details, I don't need to, but suffice to say, this was a painful time when I was at university. Affairs of the heart can be painful. Don't think I need to say any more. And this was one of those occasions when I was up late with one of my friends. I was talking through my hurt and my disappointment about what had happened. And I suppose, as we often do in situations like this, we talked over the same stuff for quite a while. We covered the same territory several times over. And I can still remember the moment when my friend said, Luke, come on, Trev, just read Psalm 131 and go to bed. And so I read that psalm, and let me read it to you now. My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. What was my friend saying when he said to me to read that passage? I look back and I think it was his way of saying, look, enough. We've talked enough, and it's time now to lay this down and give it over to God. And I guess all of us will have been at that point with various issues in our lives. There comes a time, doesn't there, when we just need to stop chewing the issue over and we need to stop analysing it or overthinking it or getting het up about it. And we just need to give it to God. I like poems. I don't get to read as much poetry these days as I used to, but when I read this psalm again this week, I found my mind going back to something which was written by one of my favourite poets, the American E. E. Cummings. I won't read all of it, but just the opening two lines of the poem go like this. I am a little church, no great cathedral, far from the splendour and squalor of hurrying cities. It's a lovely poem. If you read all of it, if you've ever read it, you know that it conveys this sense of knowing our place in the world. I'm a little church, no great cathedral. Knowing your place and being content with it, and having a peace with where we sit and how God is using us. And it seems to me that actually that idea of a sense of peace and acceptance about our place in life and what is our place to understand and to know about and what isn't runs through this psalm. So there are a couple of things which kind of go hand in hand here. There's a humility, but there's also a sense of deep trust. And actually, it's having that humility which enables David to get to the place of trust. My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. Here are the words of someone who's got to a place of peace and calm, who's made a decision not to keep on burrowing down a hole of trying to understand everything, of trying to make sense of everything which is going on around him. When I read this psalm, I think back to what Paul says in Romans 12, talks there about not thinking of ourselves more highly than we ought. And this is someone who's reached a point of submission, and it turns out to be incredibly liberating. But I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. I mean, what a beautiful image. What a lovely picture of what it is to find peace and comfort as we draw near to God and as we get beyond our striving and our struggling and we reach this place of trust. So, what did I think about sharing on this psalm this week? Well, there were a couple of reasons which came to mind. I mean, it's worth noting that what David is doing here, it's not the only response which the Psalms offer us at times like this. There are other Psalms which give us permission to cry out to God and to lament and to be angry about injustice and suffering and to be very direct with God about our insistence that things should change. And it's understandable and it's appropriate that we feel these things. It's good actually that we've got those other Psalms that offer us permission to express all of this. In fact, we're going to be thinking on Sunday about one of those lament Psalms, Psalm 13. And yet, the thing is, we need to acknowledge that we can't stay in this place of rage or despair forever. If we do, we just burn ourselves out. We exhaust ourselves. Anger is toxic, even if it's righteous anger. If you feel it for too long and it goes unchecked, it'll start to have an unhealthy impact on you. And when we look at what's going on with this pandemic, there are lots of reasons to question and to lament. And we should be angry about hundreds of thousands of unnecessary deaths and suffering. We should be angry about leaders in our world who don't want to cooperate with each other or who only want to justify their own actions. We wouldn't be human if we didn't question what's happening right now. But we can't stay in this place forever. We can't rage question forever. We all need to reach some point this Psalm 131 place of submission and peace. We need at some point to say, I can't understand why it's happening and I can't make sense of it at all, but I'm going to stop concerning myself with great matters and slow down and still myself. And when we do that, we find it's also the means by which we get to this place of peace and submission with God. Like a weaned child, we will be content. So if there are times when all of this stuff which is going on just seems too much, maybe it'll help you to follow the advice of my friend. Just read Psalm 131 and go to bed. I want to finish by offering you a blessing. And in this case, I will do so by using the language of the famous Serenity Prayer, which I realise will be familiar to many of us, but I think it conveys in a beautiful and a soul-nurturing way the same truth that this psalm teaches us. I pray, my friends, that God would bless you this week with the serenity that comes from accepting the things you can't change, with the courage to change things you can. Bless you also with the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. God bless, friends, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.